Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of Could It Be podcast. So today's podcast is going to cover the process that I went through to see my specialist and to organise the surgery. What I decided to do with 2022 was make it the year that I got through a list of medical things that I have put to the side. As I mentioned in a previous episode, I was the guardian for my dad while he was terminally ill with dementia, so I actually put my own health on hold. He was my main priority during that time. I have been seeing a really good GP surgery for about 2 years now. They were actually the GP surgery to do the referral for me to the dietitian, which was initially to look at endometriosis symptoms, but they ended up working out what food intolerances I had and the IBS issues and going low FODMAP. So I'm very, very lucky that I have come across that GP surgery. So when I was going through the list of things that I wanted to address with my doctor, I did bring up the potential breast implant illness with my GP. We talked through some of my symptoms and who I'd like a referral to at the time. I asked her for a letter to my previous surgeon because I knew that she was quite a perfectionist, and I just wanted a second opinion. So I did get a referral to a second specialist. And this specialist I just found by Googling them. They had a really good website and they had a lot of information about the surgeries that they do provide. My old surgeon doesn't have much of an online presence, so when I Googled her, I wasn't even sure whether she was still practicing until I did speak with my GP, and obviously they do have a database of acting specialists, also people who are still working, and she was able to do the referral to her for me. I was really surprised at the time in the difference between the two specialists. So my previous specialist, I only had to wait 2 months to get into her. And for the other one, I was calling, I think it was in February or March, and the earliest appointment that this particular specialist had, this is the person with a really good website, they had at least a 6-month wait. So I think the end of August was the earliest that I was able to book in for. So had my appointment booked with my old specialist, and of course, the inevitable happened, and after a weekend away in the Gold Coast for a friend's birthday, I caught COVID. And here in my particular city, we aren't able to go into a healthcare setting for 2 weeks after our isolation period finishes. So that was within the time frame of when my appointment was, so I did have to reschedule and wait another month in order to see her. And as you can imagine, I was absolutely gutted at the fact that I did have to move my appointment because I was really looking forward to getting the surgery booked in and seeing whether I would feel any better. Anyway, luckily there were no hiccups leading up to the next appointment, and I was very surprised about how nervous I was on the day. I did work in the morning and then went off to the appointment and came back, and I could not focus on anything that I was doing that morning. My specialist, so she hasn't seen me in nearly 16 years. She remembered me. The first thing she said to me when I walked in the door was, "Oh my goodness, you're all grown up now," because I was 20 the last time I saw her. I'm now 35, nearly 36. One thing I was a little bit concerned about going into the appointment was because it had been nearly 16 years since my implants had been inserted, and normally what they do say is that you'd need to have them reviewed every 10 to 15 years. I was a little bit concerned that she would be upset with me for not going to see her, and the reason why I didn't go in earlier is because of taking care of my dad. I've had so many surgeries that when it did come to around the 12-year mark, I had just had enough of having anesthetic. I just had enough of being in hospital. I just had enough of having surgery. So I did put it off. And I guess I'm glad that I didn't go back at the 10-year mark because I probably would have had them done again. And I have read in some of the Facebook groups about women experiencing breast implant illness that they tend to have symptoms worsen after they have had their implants redone. So I guess in a way I'm glad that I haven't gone back to the doctor earlier because I would have gone through that surgery again. So yeah, I'm the kind of person that looks at everything like everything happens for a reason, and there was obviously a reason for me putting this off. But yeah, my surgeon was completely non-judgmental about the fact that I hadn't been back in the 16 years. It was nearly 16 years at the appointment, so she was like, hey, it's still within 15 years, it's fine. So yeah, she was really great when it came to that. She sat me down and asked me a few questions about what's happened in the time since I've seen her. So the first question I was surprised that she asked was whether I'd had children or was planning to. Neither apply to me. I have had some medical issues with women's health, so that's not on the cards for me. And then I told her that I was looking to have my implants taken out. She was extremely professional and also quite empathetic. She did ask me why I was thinking about it, and I talked to her about the research that I had been doing on breast implant illness. We talked about my symptoms. I only gave her a couple of them because there are so many. It was, my hair's been falling out for years. I'm tired. My muscles and joints are just having constant issues. And because I was so nervous, I tend to brain fart, so that was also a part of the reason why I didn't give her more of the symptoms. She was great where she didn't dismiss my concerns, but she didn't necessarily feed into them 100% either, and I understand she's totally got a professional lens on the work that she does, so couldn't necessarily feed too much into the symptoms that I was talking about, but didn't make me feel bad about this decision. She then had a look at my implants and talked about what they will look like once explanted, and she did notice that I have some very obvious capsular contracture on the right hand side. Now, you may remember from the previous episode that my right hand side is where I have a weird body odor smell that comes out of my armpit, so I'm not sure whether that's tied to that. It was just funny that it was on the same side. I did ask her whether a fat transfer was an option, but she explained that it's normally something that they only look into for women who have gone through breast cancer treatment and having a mastectomy. So it's for people who have no breast tissue. And I was quite surprised to hear that. She did talk to me about some risk factors where later on in life when having mammograms, apparently the fat transfer can look like cancer when it isn't, and things like that. So that's not something that's on the cards by the sounds of it. She offered basically to complete the explant surgery so that I can see if my symptoms do resolve. And she did say, look, if it's not that's the issue, obviously still see your GP and find out what the problem is, and you can always have the implants back in down the track. It's not necessarily something that I really want to do, but it's good to know that I've got that option. It's not a complete end of the line, this is going to happen, you're going to be flat chested, off you go kind of thing. So I was really put at ease when she did say that. So from there I was booked in 8 weeks away from my appointment with her to have the implants taken out. My specialist has told me that I will stay in hospital for a few nights while I have drains in, and I will need around a week off of work. I do have a sedentary job where I do sit at a desk all day, so I don't have an active role where I'm lifting and moving things, so that's possibly part of the reason why I'm only needing such a short time off of work. I haven't bothered to see the other specialist yet because I am just so keen to get this surgery done. One thing that I may look at down the track is not necessarily a lift, but microsurgery to make me look better. I'm not sure whether that will be an option. I'm not sure how I will look at the end of this. But that's something that I can definitely look into. As you can possibly imagine, I'm quite nervous and wondering whether I'm making the right decision, whether I'll like the way that I look, and will any of these symptoms resolve. And I guess I'm using myself as a science experiment to see whether that is the case. So yeah, basically next time I'll go back to the list of symptoms that I reported on in the last episode, and I'm going to talk about what I've been doing over the years before I realised that it may possibly be my implants that are causing these issues, and what I've tried to implement to make me feel better. So that will be covered in the next episode. And then after that I'm doing a lot of research into the lead up to the surgery and things that I need to buy and things that I need to do, and I'll share what I'll be doing with that as well. Thank you again for listening in. Take care of yourselves, and I will speak to you next time. Bye. You can find me on Instagram on Could It Be II podcast. Thank you to my incredibly talented partner Jacob Tangdale for the intro and outro music. All the recording, editing and artwork is done by me. Thanks for listening.